Hey, this is Allie Edwards, and in this video I am going to be sharing my process for putting together the first day in the life documenting day for 2021. If you're watching this video at some other time, year, anything, this is a project that you can do anytime. You don't have to do it as part of one of our community documenting days, but you can if you want to. We generally do 2 community documenting days a year. This year we did the first one here in March. We'll do another one in the fall, and then we'll probably do it all again next year. So on my blog, you can see a post that includes a lot of the photos that I took over the course of the day, along with some of the writing that I did. And now the time has come to bring my words and photos together into this album. This is a 4x6 album that we made available earlier this year with the Day in the Life kit. It has sold out. We won't be bringing that back again this year, but we will have a new kit available for next year related to this project. We do have the digital version available of the products and the cards that you're going to see me using, and I'll link that below in case you want to pick those up and print them out yourself. So with the album, let's talk a little bit about the story lens that I used here for this first day in the life was the concept of around here. And so you'll see I've got the around here card. I'm going to add the date in there. And then I have all these 4x6 cards that I've just added into the album. There are 9 of those. So I'm going to condense my story, or I'm gonna make my story fit on those 9 around here cards. And as you'll see, I'll probably have some that may potentially have more than one topic on them. That's kind of my general thought right now. My initial thought is that I am going to actually print on a piece of paper that will be the same size, which is about, well, I'm gonna cut these out. So it's like 2 1/4 by 6, I think is what they are. And I'm probably just going to adhere my journaling directly on top of here. A couple other options: if you're using the digital kit, it's really easy to add your journaling right on top before you print them out. You can also run these cards through your printer, which is always an option, and I might end up doing that. I usually just set them, you can put them on a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper and just run them through your printer with a card temporarily adhered on there. So that's another option that I might embark on. I kind of haven't decided exactly what I want to do yet with that. What I have done so far, though, is I have printed out my photos, and I have more photos here than I will probably use, and that's a personal preference. So I think I ended up taking about 100 and some photos on the actual day. On my blog, I shared maybe 20 of them, I think. I can't remember exactly, but it was less. So I took a lot. I narrowed that down to help tell the story of my day, and then I'll probably narrow it down again here. A couple things about that, or another thing to think about related to that is, I don't mind not using all of the photos that I took, partly because I can use these photos to tell other kinds of stories. And I may end up doing that at the same time that I'm working on this. I just am gonna kind of see how it all comes together. There's a lot of adjusting that goes on when you're putting together a project like this. So I am planning that I will probably start my album with this photo, and you can see that I have printed these photos out to be the size of the page protector, and that ended up being about 7 by, I think, 4 1/4. Yeah, 4 1/4. So 7 by 4 1/4. This is going to enable me to punch holes in here and have this be an actual page within the album. Super easy, if you don't want to do that, to just print your photos 4x6 and slip them into the page protectors that are included in the album if you picked this up there. So some sort of a, having this be the cover. I'm considering adding the maybe the year onto here, since this is the album for 2021, like Day in the Life overall 2021, and then this card right here I'm going to use for the specific day, right, this first documenting day. So this picture could be, is about the first documenting day, but it could just be life in general. And then I might, now that I'm thinking about this now, I might put something on the back here, like type up some journaling that says something related to, why do I do this project? Why do I embark on Day in the Life? what am I hoping to get out of it? Why am I sharing this sort of thing? So I'm thinking that that might be a good spot for that on there. But then my plan in here is to organize my photos in such a way that when I have my journaling here, I will have one photo on this side and then I'll have another photo on this side. They'll just be adhered back to back and I'll add them in to the album. Another thing that I am considering, and this is something that you can also consider when you're putting your own album together, is that you can have multiple photos in between your journaling cards, right? Especially if you have more, and this would be the way that I think that I would add more photos into this project, is just simply adhering additional photos back to back and then having them here in the middle of the journaling. And so this would be something like this, right? Would go on this one, and if I wanted to, I can have, you know, another one. I got to organize these that would go here, and that's kind of what I'm looking at. So the next step for me in the process right now is I have two big things that I need to do next. One is I need to look at my journaling and figure out how do I want to organize the story of my day on these 9 journaling cards, and then how many of these photos do I actually want to use, and what is the order that they are going to go in. So I am focusing on words and photos first. This project, Week in the Life, which is a project that's coming up, probably we'll most likely do it in May. We're waiting for the rest of the products to come in before we release them, and then at that point we'll pick a documenting day. This project and Week in the Life, I focus more than any other project on words and photos. I have other projects that are more crafty, more creative. December Daily, I do all kinds of fun things all over the place. But this one I really like focusing or keeping the focus on the words and the photos. And so for some of you, this project might look really simple. For others of you, it will look more complex. That's kind of the way that it goes, right? So find your own way. We all find our own way through the process of telling our own stories. And I'm just gonna dive in and start organizing the photos in the order that I would want them to go in the album. And in this case, that's going to be chronological, right? Over the course of the day, I'll start in the morning and then I will move to the evening. So the way that I decided to organize this originally is I basically am just putting them in categories of like morning, midday, and then evening. And this is going to help me as I organize them and figure out how I want them to go within the album. Okay, so I have got them all in order, at least in an order that seems to make sense right now. There's a couple things that I could do at this point. I could take this over to my desk and start assessing my words. So I have my photos in place that's going to help me organize my journaling onto the cards. I can also just adhere them all together now and actually get them into the album. It feels a little risky, and I'm saying that in quotations, just because I might end up wanting to move them around, but I am going to make the decision to just go with it and I will adjust my journaling to fit. So I've got 2 here, or 4, 4 total photos there. I've got 1, 2. I think that's basically what I ended up. 1, 2, 1, 2, yep, and then we'll be here. And then 1, 2, 1, 2. Another thing that you could always do is put cards in between here too. Like if you wanted to tell a story about each one of these photos, you could use cards. There are additional cards in the kit that I will be using for the next round of Day in the Life, these ones right here. But if maybe you're only gonna do it once this year, you could totally add these cards in or make some cards with stamps. That would work there as well if there's additional journaling that you wanted to add in between that relates to the 2 photos that you have here. So let's see. So this one I'm just kind of counting up. So I have 2, 2. So this one I put 3 sets, right? So 6 pictures in between that one. And then this one I did 1, 2, 3 sets again, which is fine with me. Like I don't mind just having, looks like actually I did 4 sets on that one, and then 2 sets I think at the end. So I might end up adding something in the middle here, which is gonna work totally fine because I want to tell all of the stories that I want to get told. And I'm not sure exactly what that's gonna look like, but you can also always pull some other cards that you might have from your stash and add those in too. And I might play around with that a little bit. I'm not sure yet. This is my starting place. So what I am going to do though, I am going to adhere them and punch the holes first. I kind of like just diving in to it and getting that part done. And then I'm going to take it over to my computer to deal with the journaling portion or address the journaling portion. And then at the end, I will come back here to my table and I will add on embellishments. I'm definitely probably going to add the chipboard tabs along the top. I was super excited about having, this is a new die that we did for that. And I did these specifically because I knew that I would want to add them along the top since we were working with this horizontal album this year. So I'm looking forward to adding those on the top. I also pulled out, I've got the die cuts. I actually think that I'm going to use these for a different project. These were an add-on option that we sold this time. I really want to take these and do a 2-page layout, like a 12 by 12 with them where there's circles all over the place. That's my initial thought about those. I did pull out from the Storytelling Basics collection, we have label stickers and asterisks, chipboard asterisks that are within the same similar color scheme here. So I might include some of these labels on top of photos. Again, it's just something else. A couple other things that I pulled out. I did pull out the numbers here, and you might have seen me kind of trying to decide, maybe I will add 2021. I want to have it be a title underneath there. So I might use these chipboard numbers, or I also have the small puffy numbers that could go either on top of the transparency here or on top of the photo, and that you would be able to see those underneath. So those are some of the things that I have out here on my desk and other things that I am thinking about as I move forward with this project. Also, another thing I want to say, just as I'm thinking about my journaling here, some of my journaling that I did on this day is very specific, and I definitely want to use it like word for word. But then some of the other, I definitely know that there's an opportunity to include more words. And part of what I like about leaving a little bit of time between the documenting day and when I actually put my project together, and for me, obviously that amount of time is like a week. I know some people, it can be a lot longer, but it gives me just a little bit of time, and which time invites perspective, right? Time invites perspective. So time invites us to think about things maybe a little differently than we did right in the middle of the moment. And I always appreciate that piece of the overall process. Like a lot of the projects that I do, this one, there's production work involved, right? So once you've done the documenting, then it's the putting together process. And in this case, putting together for me is a lot of adhering, printing out the photos, adhering the photos back to back, punching the holes so that it can fit into the album, and then dealing with the printing of my journaling. So that's a lot of this one, because I'm not doing a lot of the, other crafty pieces or,
that's just, you know, my personal choice this time. So it really honestly is just the time that it takes to go through the process of putting all of these things together. And you can simplify this in a lot of ways, right? You could have your photos be 4x6 photos and they could slip right into one of the page protectors. That would totally work for this. I just continue to really like the full page photos, no matter the size of the album that I'm working with. So finishing up, getting all these adhered back to back, was really this next part of my process. And then once I was done with this part, making sure that I had them in order, then I went over to my desk and I did begin the process of starting to tackle my journaling. And I filmed a little bit of what it looks like printing onto the physical journal cards. And so you're going to see that here in just a minute. What I generally do is I set up, you can do this in Photoshop or Illustrator or even in Microsoft Word. I set up the box, you know, create a box. I measure the size of the journal card that I'm wanting to use. I do a test print. You can see that I have crop marks on there, but you can also just do it with a small outline box around the outside of your journaling. And then I print it out once, and then I temporarily adhere the 4x6 journaling card or the 3x4 card or whatever size it is onto that piece of paper using the guidelines or the or a box or however I've set it up to be able to know where to place that. And then I put it back in my printer and make sure that I do it the right way. Some printers you put the paper in face down, some printers it's face up. So you got to know how that works on your own printer. And then I go back over to my computer and I simply hit print again, and I'm able to come back over to the printer and it prints out directly onto the journal card. I generally do this one at a time. I don't even know if I've tried it with having multiple journal cards on there. So I did follow that same process for all of the around here journaling cards that I'm adding into this album. So once it goes through the printer, then you can pull it off there and then take it over and add it into your project.
All right, I am back here at my desk after printing out all my journaling. So let's take a little bit of a look at what I have in here right now. So I was able to print onto the cards. You saw my little video about what that looks like, how I'm printing out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet first, and then I'm temporarily adhering the journal cards on top. I also had to make an adjustment. This one is down a little bit farther than I would want it to be, but I'm just gonna leave it. The rest of them are in a better location. But so you can see right now I've got all of these in here, the 4x6 cards that were from the kit. I still need to go through and mark one of the check off boxes. But the other thing that I did while I was sitting down at my computer and doing a combination of copying and pasting from what I had in my blog post, as well as adding in a little bit of supplemental context to the story via words, right? I'm using words for that. I'm going to show you in a minute. I ended up doing a whole bunch of other smaller ones that I'm going to be able to fit inside here between each of the photos. So these will be cut out. I made them, let's see what is the size that I actually did. They ended up being about 3.5 by I think 4.25. So the same height there, but I needed to give some space on the side so that they can actually be hole punched. And then, oh, now I'm just thinking I'm gonna have to fix these though, because if they're adhered on the back, I'm gonna need to move them over on the other side. That is going to be an issue. So I didn't think about that in advance. This is why I do this, and then you guys can learn from the mistakes I made. So like if this is the first one, obviously the holes are gonna be on this side, but the next one that goes on the back, it's going to need to have the holes on the other side. So I need to adjust those and then reprint. But that's what's going to go in the inside here. So each one of my photos is going to have some journaling related to it. Now, like I've mentioned many times before, there's no right or wrong way to do this. If your journaling just fits on the cards, perfect. If you need to add in more, perfect. If you want to add your text directly onto the photos, perfect. If you want to handwrite your journaling, perfect, right? There's not a right or a wrong way. And each time we approach a new project or a new story, we get to decide how do we want to tackle this one. And I decided for myself, I really wanted to have more words in this one. So that's why I ended up typing up all of these. You can see I have a whole bunch of them. So I need to go back in now and reprint those and readjust my cut lines on these to create these smaller cards that are going to go inside. I also did do one larger one that is kind of a reason why, and I am going to put that on the back of my first photo as like a reason why for the whole project. And that's just going to get, actually I could probably do that one now, but I will need to go back over and reprint the other ones before I can cut them out to tackle that piece of the project. So one of the things, I am using matte presentation paper from Epson. This is a heavier weight than I have used in the past, and I saw somebody commenting about the weight of some of the Epson presentation paper in the past, and I've been using a thinner paper, which has been fine and works fine for most things. But if you want a little bit of a thicker version, I'm going to make sure to link to this. It's got, it's a little bit of a warmer color on the back with a bright white on the front, which makes it really easy to distinguish what the front is versus the back, and it's a little bit thicker, like I said. So if you're looking for a thicker printable paper, this one might be a good option for you. Seems to be working good for me. I don't love that I have to reprint multiple times, but that is what's real. So this is going to go on the back here like this, and I basically said, you know, this is a one-day documenting project that I do once or twice a year to tell the story of our basic routines in our everyday lives at a given point in time. I embark on this project because, number one, I love seeing a slice of our lives through the lens of my camera and through the printed photos. Two, I love taking everyday life photos, and this project always reminds me how much I enjoy these kinds of photos that include the mess of our real lives. I always capture things I won't remember a year from now. Number four, focusing on the basics helps me gain perspective on the bigger story of my life. And number five, it reminds me of all the things I have to be thankful for every single day. So this is going to be adhered onto the back and then punched. And then I'm planning to do something along the top, and it might be using some of the embellishments that we have, some of the stamps, something like that. I haven't decided yet what's going to go on the top because I'm waiting to do by embellishing until after I get all of my photos or my journaling printed. So I'm gonna go fix that original journaling so that I can come back on and cut that up and get that all in, and then from there I will decide how I want to tackle the rest of it. One of the things that I am thinking about putting on here, this is a 6x8 stamp set that is going to be new with our Week in the Life collection, which is coming out within the next couple of weeks. We're waiting on a few more products to arrive in the warehouse, but these are going to be available. So I'm thinking I could use the Around Here, I could use the Remember, any of those. Obviously this, you know, has this week, which is because it was designed for Week in the Life, but I really wanted to have some stamps that were large handwritten stamps. This obviously is bigger than a 4x6, but you can see how it's just big enough to go on as a title on a 4x6 card. So that is something that I did pull out from, and again, this won't be available probably for a couple more weeks, but makes sense for this project.
Okay, so I went ahead and reprinted out my journaling, finished, I think I'd already had all those Around Here journaling set up, and I also finished punching the holes for all of my photos. So I'm basically, again, just following that process of getting everything into my album first, and then figuring out what kind of embellishing I want to do, which I already know in this case it's going to be pretty light, but I still don't know exactly what I'm doing. But going through here now, the next step is after I reprinted those journaling spots or those journaling pieces, the additional Around Here stuff, I am cutting them up. I am adhering them back to back so that they can each be a page, and then I am punching holes in them so that every single photo has some journaling to go along with it. I considered using the Today stamp, but I wanted to stick with the Around Here sentiment, so I'm going to use the Around Here stamp on the top. That, again, is from the Prompts stamp set, which was released a long time ago. We have it come in and out of stock, so if it's something that you want, you can always hit the, it's like a Notify Me button, and then you can get notified when those come back in stock. But we also do have them digitally, so you could always add the digital version on before you print out your journaling, and that way you wouldn't even have to do any stamping if you didn't want to. I kind of was excited to add a little bit of a little more hand hand done look, I guess, with the stamping, obviously not totally by hand, but just the invitation for a little bit of mess mixed in with the clean lines of everything else, especially with having all of the typed journaling, which I appreciate and love. And I feel like I told a more complete story by doing it that way this time. One of the things I was thinking about this morning as I was coming back up here to finish up recording and taking care of this process video was how I think that I probably added more journaling into this project than I normally do. And I think that part of that reason why could potentially be that I haven't been doing Project Life, or I'm not doing Project Life like I have done for many years. So it was kind of a really nice opportunity to collect thoughts about everyday life, to tell a few different stories related to everybody in our family, to focus a little bit on the rhythms of our everyday right now. And I think it's really interesting, especially because this is coming as things are starting to open up where I live here in Oregon. A couple of our kids are already in school or back in the classroom, and then the rest of them will be going back at least part-time starting in April, and so we will have another transition. So I love the opportunity to document a day before things go in that direction. I want to say back to normal, but I just don't even know what that means anymore. Back to a more regular routine where the kids actually go to school. At least, like I said, they'll probably go at least part-time before we get into summer. So I appreciated that opportunity to kind of continue to document a little bit more about what life has looked like or looks like right now. And I definitely gave myself the opportunity to make space for the words. I don't do this in every project, and I mention that often just because I think it's nice for people to remember that sometimes we can, memory keeping, it doesn't mean that you have to have tons of words all the time. I talk about the words a lot because I want to encourage you and advocate for you to include more words in your projects because I think they're meaningful and I get great value from them. But I also know that it's really fun to play with paint, and it's really fun to play with product, and it's really fun to have some projects where it is more focused on other things besides just getting in a lot of words. So remember that it can always be a little bit of both, and that you get to choose on any individual project what kinds of things you might want to bring to the table and what you want to focus on for that individual project. So I finished up there getting all of the holes punched. So I've got everything in order. I'm going to fix that kind of reason why page there in the front. I don't know that I've done that for Day in the Life before, but I definitely did like adding that in. It felt like it made a lot of sense, especially at the beginning of the album. Then I did use that first photo of me there is my intro photo, and I decided that I wanted to use these white chipboard pieces. These are Storytelling Basics white chipboard numbers. We've got them in the shop. You can also use puffy numbers. You could use any numbers that you had. You could add that digitally onto the photo. I just wanted to have 2021 on that main page as a designation for when these stories are being told, right? The specific day is going to be stamped on the first card, but I liked having a little bit more of an intro to the album. I also took a couple of those little mini chipboard hearts from the kit and added those as the dots on the eyes for the word in and the word life. I just did them on the front side. I didn't do them on the back, but you could have one on there if you wanted to. That would work also. All right, I'm flipping through there. I'm kind of looks like I'm counting it up. And I'm counting them up because I knew that I wanted to use those chipboard pieces on the top, the tabs there. I wanted to use those on the top. And I was counting because I ended up with the around here journaling cards mixed in, in the page protectors there, back to back in the page protectors, along with this title card. I had 5 of them in page protectors, so I knew that I wanted to use 10 of the chipboard tabs. So I'm pulling all of those out so that will help me arrange those tabs, and I'm going to put them on the front and the back, which is why I needed 10 because we've got 5 different page protectors there. So I set up the first one. I did the first one to begin with, and then I knew that I wanted to put the last one on next so that I had some sense of where things were going, and that would help me organize them on those other 3 cards. So I start at one end, I end at the other end, and then I'm able to put the third one can go right in the middle, right? And then I'm just kind of organizing them around there. So I tried to look a little bit about what was my journaling on each one. Did I have, was there a chipboard piece that was related or relevant or close enough? Again, not spending a ton of time being like, this is not the perfect chipboard. This is not the perfect sentiment for that. I'm just picking and choosing a few different ones here, and then adding them onto the back as well. I really like how these look in the album. I think that they're a cute little something, right, sticking up off the top of the page, and it designates which pages are specifically the journaling, at least the 4x6 journaling cards there. Okay, let's see. What else can I tell you guys about this? I had 2 leftover. All of the leftover things I will save for the next documenting day, which is going to be in the fall. And I'm just putting them all back into the yellow envelope that the kit came in so that I'll have it all together when the next documenting day comes in the fall. You can see that I just used a rolling date stamp to add the date directly onto that title card. I also grabbed a pen and I started making an X mark on the little check boxes that are underneath the around here cards or underneath the title. But then I was looking at my desk and I noticed that the chipboard hearts, the tiny chipboard hearts, can fit right on those spots to cover up the little boxes. So I went back in, I covered up the X marks that I had made. Luckily I didn't make them huge, and I'm able to just go ahead and stick the chipboard hearts on top. So I like that. Again, it's a nice, just a tiny little bit of decoration. Like, it just doesn't have to be a lot, but it can always be more if you want it there as well. So I finished that task. Then I decided that I did want to add one of those big fabric circles onto the title card. I actually adhered it, and then I also ran it through my sewing machine. So I had red thread, which is still on there from December. As some of you know, that's when I really like to stitch on stuff. But I went ahead and just stitched it right on there, and then that will sit inside the pocket. Now I wanted to add some sort of a title onto my reason why section there, and I talked about these earlier in the video. These are, it's a new stamp set that's coming out with Week in the Life, which is going to be in the next couple of weeks. They're really big, so they're great for a 4x6 title on a 4x6 card, or maybe a 6x8 6x8 page or anything, just big, just going bigger with the words, I think felt like something fun to do. So I tested out a couple of the inks. One of the things that I found with this matte presentation paper, this thicker Epson matte presentation paper, my craft inks they just didn't seem right on there. I'm not sure exactly what it was. So I ended up grabbing some of the other inks that I have here in my stash, and I'll link those for you guys below. They are some inks from Tim Holtz, and we'll see them here in a minute, but I did go ahead and stamp that. Oh, they're the archival inks. I did red on that around here. Then at first I thought that I would do a combination of colors here, and obviously you can always do that. And I started out with a green and a gray, but again, it was just kind of like, it's like the ink is, the paper is not soaking up the ink. And this is one of the reasons why I always recommend to people that you test out your inks that you're going to use on your paper. Do a test one before you do it on whatever it is that's going to matter for you. I ended up going back in, reprinting that first journaling card there, and then just using StazOn for the rest of them. That seemed to work a lot better for me, especially because I didn't want to wait around for any ink drying situation. And it just simplified the process also. So going ahead and stamping that on there, again, like I mentioned previously, if you don't have that stamp set, we do have it digitally, and you could add that on to your little card there before you print it out if you wanted to do that. So just going super simple. I did consider, do I want to add some more color on these? Like, do I want to add washi tape along the bottom? Do I want to stamp some other things? And I decided to just keep it super simple. You will see in a minute, though, I am going to add something on the edge there that I really like how it turned out. I'm actually going to take some washi tape and create little tabs. A lot of times when I have an insert like this in an album, I will use the Avery index tabs, and I could have used those on these too, but I was trying to think of what was something else that I could do that was different from using those Avery index tabs. Just some other thing that could bring in a little bit of color and also be something that helps you turn the page is kind of what I like about those. All right, so I dove into my washi stash and I found this rainbow washi. Unfortunately, I am not sure where that came from. I try to do a little bit of research. So if somebody knows, somebody's seen this rainbow washi, I checked a couple sites that I buy this kind of stuff from and I didn't see it, but I'll look again before I push this live. But if anybody knows, it would be awesome to have the source for that. But I decided to just fold it over on those around here, those extra pages, the extra journaling pages. And I'm also going to, in a minute here, you're going to see I'm going to start adding on the chipboard hearts to the front and the back of those, along with using my tiny attacher to staple them in place. I loved the addition of the rainbow. Like it just felt, it's just a little something, but it just made me happy. Like that's what I felt like as I was adding it on there, just simply folding it over, super easy to create a little tab. You could do ribbon along the edge there. You could do washi tape down the long side of the page, like, and fold it over. Lots of different approaches there, or you could dive into your stash and maybe you have a bunch of different things that you could add off the edge, stickers that you could do back to back. I'm sure that you probably have something in your pile of things that you could use for that. But I really like how that turned out. I felt like that was like just the right little bit of color. And then I really liked once I added the chipboard hearts on top there. So I went ahead and just continued doing that on all of those pages. All right, then last step in my process was I pulled out pretty much all of the word phrase stickers that I have here in my stash right now. There is a set that's included with the kit, so I'm using those in conjunction with a bunch of the other ones that I have from various story kits, project kits, all kinds of different things. I've long been a major fan of these word phrase stickers, so I have a lot of them, but when I add them onto photos like this, I like to add 3. So I'm going through and I'm looking at the ones I have and I'm trying to pick out 3 for each one of my photos. And then I'm putting them along the outside edge, somewhere along the outside edge, top, bottom, middle. It didn't really matter to me. I kind of tried to vary that a little bit as I went through. And that is really ends up being the main bit of embellishing I did. So I've got the washi tape with the little hearts. I've got word phrase stickers. For me, this feels like a very documentary, direct sort of memory keeping that I really appreciate having from time to time. So as we wrap up here, you're going to be able to see a flip through in just a minute of the full completed album. But if you guys have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And I would love to see you documenting along with our community sometime in the fall. You can sign up for our newsletter for more information.